Welcome to the Lockdown Economy, a social non-profit initiative by the think tank AlterContacts to help small businesses and self-employed professionals overcome the challenges of the pandemic and reactivate the economy. My name is Karen Rickes, and today our guest is Adriana Stein, digital marketing consultant and founder of AS Marketing. My marketing agency focuses on developing holistic online marketing strategies for B2B and B2C companies across both English and German-speaking markets. Hello, Adriana. How are you today?
Hi, Karen. Thanks so much for having me. Doing fine. How are you?
I'm good too. Thank you so much, Adriana, for being with us here today again, because this is actually your second interview with the Lockdown Economy already. Could you tell us a bit about how the pandemic has affected your business since we last spoke?
Yeah, so everything in the marketing world we call it a very volatile situation. Usually that's used to describe the economy, but I would say the total situation in business right now is just very volatile. It's constantly changing, and it's very difficult to tell, especially in terms of like revenue, what's going to happen. So I have one example. Basically, I was recently supporting a client who works they do like coupons for the event industry, basically. And they're like, yeah, we just have no idea how to do marketing for this because, oh, we might see a revenue dip and question that and then go, oh, well, they're closed. So that's why. So it's just very difficult to tell actually what to do and where to put resources and where to prioritize your time. And I think that has really caused a lot of stress for a lot of people. And yeah, I think we're all just kind of hoping that it will start to get a bit more smooth and streamlined soon. I won't say back to normal because I think that the old normal is not going to come back, but at least a little bit less chaotic would be nice.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think that's something we can probably all arrange ourselves with. Some notion of a new normal, perhaps.
Yeah.
You mentioned in your last interview that, to kind of counterbalance some of the uncertainty, the volatility that you mentioned, that you really focused on sort of communicating with not only your clients, but also with your team. Could you tell us a bit more about sort of how the team is holding up and how you're managing everything at the moment?
Yeah, so with my team, we work completely remotely, just as a reminder for anyone watching. And we work with a project manager, and I think that's really the best way to kind of keep everyone on track so they know what they need to do and by when. And that's also easy to set for different time zones. So I think that hasn't really been such a problem because I was using this model before the lockdown anyways. And so that I guess has not really changed from my perspective. But from the client perspective, they have begun to ask my help for implementing these same systems because they may not have had the system, or they may have had a partial system in place, but they've really needed to make this system fully remote and they're a bit unsure how to do it. And especially when you have so many different team members, especially when you're working with, let's say, like a rapidly growing small business, especially in B2B tech, we're working very, very closely with sales, with customer support, with client success, things like this. And we have to have a lot of different meetings and make sure that the messaging makes sense from every perspective, basically. And that all needs to be coordinated. And it can be really overwhelming for the person at the top who, you know, is maybe a C-suite executive, CMO, CEO, a person in this title. And they're unused to having this sort of demand to keep really all of these groups in place and make sure that the whole structure works efficiently. And I think that's something that you just need to have more than one person working on. We need to have this collaboration element. And so I think that's probably been the biggest focus, even throughout the entire COVID pandemic. That's been really my focus is collaborating as closely as possible with my clients and brainstorming, and also just making sure that they feel like mentally okay, because I think we need this. I mean, we need people to talk to, we need people to support us even with work. And I think that's more important than ever to just collaborate and communicate.
Yeah, definitely. So collaborating maybe also not only with your clients, but actually also with, for example, freelancing personnel that you're hiring. Could you maybe tell us a bit more about that, sort of the benefits you've gained from that for those viewers who didn't watch the first interview?
Yeah, so my agency model is based fully on freelancers, and that was actually a decision I made long before COVID, mainly because it arose from my desire also to work flexibly and to set my own schedule and basically work in a manner that I would like, but that also supports my clients in the manner that they need. And actually, this flexibility is a bonus for them too, because what I've noticed is they also have begun to work a lot more flexibly than in the past. And this is kind of the new work norm. So I don't think that I will really change my model to incorporate employees at any point soon. Maybe I will change in the future. I will never say never, but I would say that my is really to work with freelancers, because a lot of people, when you choose to be freelance, you have this mindset of flexibility, and you don't necessarily need to have so much supervision, let's say. You're kind of a very self-disciplined person when you can work like that, which is actually really great for working in a marketing agency, because you have lots of different projects with different audiences, with different goals, and when switch back and forth or do one thing here and one thing there, then that actually really fits mindset really well.
Okay, really
So
interesting. Yeah, really
yeah.
good to hear. So how do you coordinate these freelancers? Sort of what's the kind of projects they're working on?
So kind of a work in progress to optimize those processes, but the main thing comes down to having a project manager. This is absolutely a must. This is an actual software. There's the title of a person who is a project manager, which we also have too, but I mean in this case a software as the foundation. So our company is run entirely with a project manager, Asana, and now we're to the point where I don't think we could really live without integral to what we're doing, and it makes us super efficient. And I think one thing that's super important too is you don't have to start your day and think, okay, what do I need to do today? It's just there, and you can start, and you save that like 20% maybe of your day guessing what you should work on next, and you have it directly in front of you. And this is everyone on their own project board. Sometimes we have clients where there are multiple people working on one project. Sometimes it's just one person and me. It really depends on what the requirements are. And then there's always basically a person. This is the second part that's really, really important for our internal processes, is having someone that just like keeps us all organized, so that the project manager, the software, Asana, tells us what it should be telling us at the right time, and just making sure all the deadlines are met, because that's always super important.
Yes, of course. So it's kind of working the schedule, working the organization from two angles to make it even more efficient. Well, I guess that sort of frees up some time for you to maybe also think about other things. If I understand correctly, you recently sort of pushed some effort into rebranding yourself, rebranding the business. Could you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so basically that came about because my content operations manager, she's an incredible lady. I don't know what I would do without her. She is so smart. And we went through, I think mid last year or so, we went through an entire process where we created really detailed buyer personas. So for anyone who's unfamiliar with what this is, a buyer persona is a fictional representation of your ideal customer, and a lot of information about them, what their pain points are, so their problems, what their questions are, what their challenges are, what their demographic data is, like this. And I've been doing that for clients for quite some time, but I've never actually done it for my own business. And what I discovered through this process and her very insightful support was that actually my entire messaging with my former brand was completely wrong.
Okay.
And it had completely transitioned to something else. And so that's the goal now with the rebrand, which we are nearly done. So fingers crossed it will happen soon, that we can launch. Getting a new website done is always takes longer than planned. So there's lots of little pieces to fall into place. But that's basically the goal with the rebrand, is that I'm answering a lot more questions from the audience that I'm really working with. And just as a summary of basically this process, I started really rather supporting the business owner side. So smaller businesses who didn't really know, they didn't know how to create their own marketing strategy because that wasn't their background, and they needed some support in that. But now it has transitioned to where I'm working more with senior marketers at larger companies, and I'm still working on the strategy side, collaborating with them and brainstorming with them. How can we prioritize what we need to do in the marketing strategy? How can we execute that marketing strategy? Things like this. But the messaging for a business owner versus a marketer are completely different. So that's basically our goal has been to transition that messaging with the rebranding.
Okay, really interesting. What would you say, sort of, how did that transition, that shift come about, that you're now sort of, perhaps less focused on the strategy side, on sort of supporting smaller businesses, but really working together with senior marketers?
I think it's a combination of experience and a growth in my network. So as an agency owner, your network is so important, because when you work well with one client, then it's likely that they can suggest that you work with another client, and this is the referral system and so on. More that you learn about a particular industry, which is kind of actually another focus of our rebranding, was to hone in a little bit more on B2B tech, because that's, I would say, probably 3/4 of our clients are in this industry. And so through the combination of a network growth within this industry and really gaining the experience to work directly with those marketers on different but also similar projects, so you can really apply this cross-learning approach, and then everyone benefits from that, even projects that happen simultaneously, which that has started to happen more and more. There's kind of little overlaps here and there that you learn things from one project and apply to another. And so that is basically, I think, where a lot of that transition has come from.
Okay, interesting. And now that you're working towards rebranding yourself, hopefully sooner rather than later.
Yes.
And you mentioned that a lot of your customers, of course, also come from sort of referrals from existing clients. But sort of generally speaking, what is your own marketing strategy? What channels, for example, do you use most?
LinkedIn, 100%. That I guess is a very easy answer, because we have all social media channels. Basically, there will also be, although the blog is very out of date now because we've been rebranding, we've also done a blog and SEO and things like that, especially because that's what we specialize in, is SEO. But LinkedIn is really where it's at, which I guess is probably also affects this transition in the type of clients we've had, because LinkedIn is a B2B platform in itself. And so the audience there that largely engages with my personal profile, that's where the majority of clients come from, actually. So that's the most important channel, I think, other than referrals. Yeah, if I had to keep it simple.
All right. Well, now that we talked about a lot of things that have been happening for you over the last couple of months, reflecting on all that and sort of everything that's yet to come, what would you say are some of your biggest learnings in managing this crisis?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think one of the biggest things is how to prioritize what to actually do in marketing. What I have found is that most of my clients that I work with, they're totally overwhelmed with data. They have so much data. They have so much content often to look through. They have so many different elements of marketing to consider. When do we start marketing automation? When do we start SEO? When do we start lead generation? When do we start, et cetera, et cetera. And it goes on. If you have other languages, if you're a global company, the work becomes literally endless, and you can start to just feel completely overwhelmed, and like, it's like the situation where you have so much to do that you just go take a nap instead.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is what a lot of marketers feel. And it's kind of amplified, especially because we're also responsible for revenue in effect. It's not just sales that is responsible for sales. Marketing is also
Mm-hmm.
responsible for sales and revenue. And so we have this additional pressure to make a lot of money really quickly, be really efficient, but to make that decision from how do we take these 5 bazillion choices that we could make and turn it into the few choices that become what we actually execute. And I think that has been the biggest lesson, to try to make that decision as simple as possible. And one approach that I've tried to take, or I've incorporated more often, especially in larger companies, is the MVP approach, minimum viable product. And this basically means, like, whenever you have a campaign, whatever type of marketing this might be, marketing automation, SEO, etc., that it's the minimum amount to be still workable, still doable. So you still get something done, something is executed, something is finished, something's live, published, etc. It may not be as extensive as you want it. It may not be in 15 languages. It may not have 27 workflows with segmented audiences and 15 lead magnets that bring in leads, but you have a start. So focusing on that start and then making baby steps is a much better way of trying to make progress versus trying to do everything all at once and feeling overwhelmed and then just giving up.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's probably good advice, not only for any entrepreneurs that might be watching, but just people in general, that sometimes you just need to kind of break down your task a little bit so they become much more manageable. So that's a really good point. So now that you've given some advice to others, you're helping others to kind of round off the interview, I'd be curious to know what you could use help with, what you could use advice on. So could you maybe name 3 things that come to mind?
Yeah, so I would say the main one would be finding a very experienced person actually kind of to brainstorm and collaborate with for me, because I also need that person. How I help my clients, with finding here are my fresh external ideas for your marketing strategy. Here's what we can discuss for today. Here's our to-do list. And basically that's what I help them prioritize. I would love to have that person for me, because I have also started to feel the same feeling with my own marketing. Overwhelmed, there's too much to do, it's very hard to prioritize, and of course also the client projects must always come first.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes things that I would like to accomplish for our agency, they don't get done, simply because I've run out of time, or I can't prioritize what I need to do to finish them. So I think that's probably the biggest thing. The second thing would be also support with more technical projects. So mainly technical SEO, things like audits, strategy audits, or even technical SEO audits. So more support from people with a lot of technical experience would be super helpful. That's kind of our USP, unique selling point, that we're not just content strategists. We actually dive really deep into the data and we create organized structures from it. And that's difficult, and it's a lot of looking through Excel sheets sometimes. So it would be great also to have, a few people who are working on those projects at once to sort of support each other and also come up with fresh ideas to collaborate. So it's not just one perspective. The third thing, it's hard because most of my needs are related to just finding the right people. So I guess it would again just be kind of the right people with technical experience, but also maybe, I guess, as a third person, it would be like a content strategist. So especially someone who speaks English or German fluently. I mean, they would need to speak both, but one as a native speaker would be really helpful, just to sort of also be my sparring partner there, because a lot of these things I also don't really have someone to kind of brainstorm with and collaborate with. So that's what I need, the same thing basically as my clients, just
just from
technical or strategy support.
Definitely, yeah. So just sort of support from the other side a little bit to, yeah, then in turn, of course, also help your clients much better. Thank you,
Exactly.
Adriana, for sharing your insights. We'll make sure to get your message out there. Thank you to everyone who joined us here today. Adriana, do you have any last words to our viewers?
I think I would just like to say, for no matter what business you have, try to take the simplest approach possible, no matter what department you're working in, whether you're in marketing or whether you're the business owner, because now it feels like we need to get 5 bazillion things done because we need to make money, and we're all stuck at home and have this really additional pressure from the lockdown and the constant stress with all of the changing laws. So I think, yeah, just try to prioritize on a few simple things, and then feel okay with that. Feel okay that you accomplished that. Feel satisfied with that, and don't feel guilty that you're not working 24/7.
Yes, very, very important advice. Definitely keep in mind to take breaks every once in a while as well, for sure.
Yes.
Thank you, Adriana, for sharing that. Feel free to contact Adriana using any of the links in the description of this video below. I invite you to like this video and subscribe to our channel. On our channel, you can find many more insights from many different entrepreneurs in different countries and business sectors. So please have a look and stay tuned.